So hello. Today we are here. We are dancing with Jonathan Burrows. It's such a pleasure. I think you're a huge influence to myself in my career, but I think equally you're just a huge influence to dance in general. I have known of your work for a long time. As we were just speaking, I've been even working very much with your Choreographer's Handbook, almost as a textbook in class. And I've seen your works numerous times, and I feel very privileged to be here. So thank you for having me. And for anyone who maybe doesn't know who you are or where you are at the moment, how do you introduce yourself today for this moment?
Well, I would normally say, first of all, thank you for coming down and thank you for those kind words. I would immediately want to clarify that the kinds of ideas that are shared in a choreographer's handbook and in the teaching that I do are all collective. They all have collective origin. I like contemporary dance because of its generosity, and whilst I do try to credit always ideas that I'm using that have come from another artist, at the same time I like the fluidity of sharing ideas that seems to be a very present part of contemporary dance practice. I do identify as a choreographer, but I should add to that I'm in a phase at the moment where I'm caught between two feelings about choreography. The first is that I still really like doing it. I get a huge amount of pleasure and focus and cognitive and imaginative exercise from my practice of choreographing. But at the same time, I'm slowly arriving at a position where I suspect that everybody who dances is already choreographing. And I was talking to Chrissa Parkinson about this recently, just a couple of weeks ago, and she quite rightly cautioned me not to use that statement to accidentally erase the identity of the person who is a dancer. Not to say, therefore you are also and automatically a choreographer, because that would be to lose aspects of practice which belong to the dancer herself. And so I've been thinking about that since Chris has said it. But my reason for... I think when I say everybody who dances is already choreographing, I'm aware that the job description choreographer remains. I don't think that will go away. But my arrival at that concept has been through trying to examine what are the things that I feel that are pleasurable when I choreograph, and then to try to observe whether that's true for other people and where it's true and how it's true. So I've been working for 2 years with the Serbian dramaturg and theorist Bojana Švejić on that idea, and we've also invited a collaboration with the neuroscientist Guido Orgs, who interestingly enough is himself a trained dancer, though now research neuroscientist at University College London. And he has a similar sense that dancing is choreographing, that the way that he would put it, I think, is that the same parts of the body mind are active in both activities.
Yeah. I mean, it's extremely interesting, of course, with Chris's work, with her advocacy of the dancer as author, and what is their material, because arguably that's a similar argument to what you're sort of making.
Yes, but I agree with her that you have to be careful not to accidentally remove the importance of the role of the person who identifies as a dancer.
Yeah.
But I think also my position has come about by realizing more recently that actually all the work that I've done with the composer Matteo Fargion is co-authored.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We may at various times take upon ourselves various undiscussed roles depending on what we're doing and how we're doing it. But nevertheless, the longer we've worked, the more we felt able to accept a position of co-authorship.
Mm-hmm.
And so I suppose what I'm saying is that I'm not very often in a situation where I could say I am the job description choreographer.
Yeah.
In fact, I've pretty much actively avoided it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've never felt very comfortable with that.
Mm. So maybe I can ask, we're already sort of speaking on what you're busy with, I get the sense. So maybe I can ask, so what do you feel you are doing? Because you spoke about feeling as well, which is I think in dance is such an interesting place maybe, or wording or direction. So what do you feel when you're choreographing? What is that, so to speak, in relationship to this, I don't want to say crisis of identity, but this pondering around identity?
Well, I think it's complicated to land upon what that sense of feeling is. But I would borrow the term entanglement, but in the way that the philosopher Alvaro has used it in his most recent book, The Entanglement.
Mm-hmm.
And in that book, he has a chapter specifically on dance, which is an area that he's been working within actually for many years with the choreographer William Forsyth, with Lisa Nelson, and so forth. And there, Alvaro uses the idea of entanglement to describe the ways in which dancing is always entangled with ideas, images, preconceptions about the choreographic, and the choreographic is always entangled with what we might describe as the intuitive or spontaneous aspects of dancing. And for me, the pleasure is exactly in that interplay between what my body understands physically in an intuitive sense and what my body understands somehow or experiences cognitively in terms of memory and anticipation. So the experience of time while dancing, what do I remember happened before and what do I anticipate could happen next? And so I don't know if I'm right, and I would be very hesitant to share this, but I'm going to risk it because maybe it provokes somebody to have a clearer impression. But I have an idea that when I watch a dance performance, whatever the subject, emotional field, atmosphere, tone, cultural specificity might be, I'm always engaged in a playful awareness of my own sense of time.
as the, well, not the spectator, but
as a spectator.
Yeah.
I mean, it's there obviously when I do it as well, but there's something deeply human about that. And of course other art forms do it, film, music, and so forth. I mean, possibly even writing, but there's something about dance because it contains also this spatial awareness, a very evident spatial awareness. That I think there's a heightened sense of triggering my own perception of myself in time, or as the anthropologist Tim Ingold would put it somehow, if I very risk to very loosely paraphrase, my body in and through the world, with the world, in time.
Yeah, because a lot of your work, that's unfair. A lot of your work that I've seen, it deals with time quite centrally, as a texture, as a place, maybe. You're very rarely using large spatial compositions. It's usually at a desk or on a chair, and the rhythm and the timing, the repetition, the way that it moves my or the audience's attention through through time, I guess, is somehow fascinating. Because I would sort of echo a sense of when I'm watching dance, there's a quality of thinking, ironically.
Yeah.
That sort of is sort of encouraged, or almost sort of provided this space of drift in the mind.
Yeah, but in the body as well. It's kind of it's embodied cognition. I don't know if that exists as a term within cognitive science, but I mean, whether I would have done that had I not met a composer who is an artist that I just resonated with immediately, and we started working together immediately. I don't know, but I mean, obviously, I'm going to work with time if I work with a composer, and we're both creating and performing together. I mean, I can perfectly see I would never recommend the way we work to anybody else. It's not a methodology. It's just what we're able to do because of who we are and who we are in the ways that we relate. And the working at a table is also partly just a financial consideration. We've rarely been able to afford studios for long periods of time. Yeah. And so we took to, and we also slow somehow when we work. So we took to working at tables. It's extremely limiting, and that is also frustrating. But I'm now gradually getting to a point where I think there's something also interesting about the comparative, the comparative work over the years, and all within a tightly enclosed space of performance. But I would hope that imaginatively it's not tightly enclosed. Yeah. In fact, the opposite might be true. And I'm also getting old, much older, so it's much more comfortable for me to sit on a chair.
You said slow there. When you work together, you slow. What do you mean by that? If I mind prodding you there?
Well, I mean, the first duet that Matteo and I made, Both Sitting Duet, which was in 2002, it took us 6 months.
Okay.
And over the years, we've been getting slower, so that the piece that we premiered in May this year in Oslo and Zagreb and Stuttgart took us 2 years to make. I mean, that was partly because it was a difficult project, or ran into difficulties, which were brilliant difficulties. I mean, now I really like them, but if we hadn't managed to come out the other end of the difficulties, I would have been more depressed than I am.
Yeah. This, I just made a piece for babies, so people under the age of 18 months. And one of the things that I found really interesting and captivating was the sort of maybe the slowness, or perhaps even the quality of being with them regardless of knowing what they are getting, what they are dealing with, and what's truly their culture, so to speak. And it's a beautiful sort of like continuous work that one had to do. I mean, we toured for the whole spring, so we had something like 30 performances, and they were 3 hours long, so the babies and guardians could come in and out and do it at their own pace. But interestingly, they would stay for quite a long time, so we would have some which would stay for an hour and a half, seemingly actively focused. And we did a very slow performance. It wasn't, we had to really resist actually moving towards sort of children's sort of something to keep the attention constantly, but go with something slow. And I feel as though that by allowing time, giving it a chance, and staying with the children, their pace, their focus, and those things, it's very generous. There's a sort of, and it reminds me of some of the qualities in the way you speak, the way you articulate your thought and your work. There's this openness, which I think is provided by the questions often. There's a sort of, I don't want to say you contradict yourself, but you pull into the fold ambiguity, which allows us to commit almost and stay there a little bit longer. Because the parents that were really, or the guardians that were really problematic, were the ones who didn't give it a chance. They would sort of, they would deem it wasn't entertaining enough for their child and leave before they recognized, no, actually something, there's a tempo here, there's something here that the children could sort of engage in. Yeah.
I mean, I should say we don't perform slowly, we perform really quickly.
No, it's true.
It's just the arrival at the performance is slow. And we do make versions of pieces or pieces that nobody sees because they don't arrive at the place of recognition or something. The questions thing is just... I do actually remain genuinely interested in watching people dance and choreograph. I mean, I've become skeptical sometimes about the cultural machine of contemporary dance, mainly to do with the claims it constantly, I think, is required to make for itself, which seem out of proportion sometimes to the subtlety of the interaction that you can have as a participant or a spectator, and the ambiguity, as you say. It's often not an experience that you can pin down or say exactly what happened. And I mean, of course, some people find that frustrating. They would prefer a strong narrative or whatever. And I don't. I feel really happy in that slightly ambiguous space.
But you do it very cleverly, but you do it very cautiously. That you do manage to keep us with you when we're watching it, and maybe it is that sort of no, this doesn't capture where you're going and actually going for it. Or maybe it is the fastness, like you say, but it really, it's super engaging, I find, and it provides such a great access to exactly what I feel you're describing of being with dance and staying in that ambiguity, that strangeness, that weird place.
Yeah, I mean, it's not about... good choreography is not about manipulating the audience.
No.
And neither is it about challenging the audience. I think that's a mistake. It can produce extraordinary work. Sorry, I speak too strongly because I've been challenged by dance performances. But I find myself more interested in the idea that choreography is about helping us all to stay together in the same room, space, time, and following through whatever that duration is. And I don't like the idea of choreographic tools because I think there are too many methodologies, and as soon as you've found a tool, it often becomes redundant again. It was only the thing you needed to solve that moment or whatever. But at the same time, I think, strictly speaking, applying yourself to choreography or more, even more so, composition musically, it is about introducing things in a way and at a pacing that allows everybody best as possible to follow and doesn't leave people behind. And that takes time and experiment. You have to try a multitude of different ways, and every piece that you make seems to propose its own journey through that process of finding out how to hold together the threads of what's happening, whatever they are, whether they're emotional, rhythmic, concrete ideas or whatever. And with the piece that Matteo and I made this year, it's called the Unison Piece, and it was only 30 minutes long. It has a very simple premise that we just decided we'd always done everything in counterpoint, and we should make a performance where we did everything absolutely in unison. And so I drew upon some research which Bojana Švejić very kindly had shared with me over a period of time, in which I'd been part of, about questions around why unison is complex socially and politically within contemporary dance. I mean, obviously, because it is something that can be coercive, but at the same time, it's also at the heart of dancing. I do it with you. I invite you to do it with me. And so the piece with Matteo is an investigation into the joys and difficulties of doing something together. And I think it's resonating with people because of the ways in which we're at the moment of a kind of intensifying of a neoliberal agenda and an individualistic agenda. But the piece itself, the way that Matteo and I work is we tend to pass things to and fro with very long periods of silence and no conversation between. And I'd passed him a text, and then he had passed it back in a brilliant looping form. And it was really great, but I felt there was something missing. So I held on to this for, I think, 2 months, and was trying to introduce more things without losing the pleasures of this very minimal looping structure. And it got to the point where I was spending 12 hours a day sat at this table doing it over and over again. And my 16-year-old daughter came down and she said, "Please, will you stop? Please, will you stop doing this old men's cult performance?" But I did eventually manage to get it to a place where I thought it was resonating more. And then, of course, Matteo and I made the mistake of getting overconfident. We overloaded it with too much, and then it really wasn't working. And then Matteo's daughter Francesca, who's worked with us for many years, she sat with us, and in 20 minutes she cut half of the text that I'd written, literally half. And then we did it again, and what she'd done is I was trying to give too much information, and she rendered it into a lyric. Yeah. And actually, the first performance of it was slightly an accident. We were in Oslo, and the Norwegian choreographer Mette Edvardsen has a bookshop there, beautiful space, and she said, will you come and do a showing there? And we said, we're not finished yet. And she said, oh, it doesn't matter, just come. So we kind of pulled it together, and 100 people turned up. Then we realised that it was finished. I think otherwise we would have struggled on for another year. But it's just to give you an image of the kind of daily practice that goes into trying to arrive at something. And I think at any moment we might have thrown it away and given up.
Yes, yeah.
And it was quite a surprise when it resonated with people. But that's always the case. I think the idea that you can ever learn how to make a performance is misguided. I find it's becoming sometimes more difficult. You know?
More difficult to make a performance.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in general, socially and culturally and politically, anyway, because I think we're all feeling a bit knocked in contemporary dance at the moment. There really is a feeling, that the ways in which we've sustained ourselves with a sense of purpose and confidence are getting harder to navigate. But I think also just that the minute you start thinking you know what you're doing, you find out that you don't.
Yeah.
But I mean, how good is that? There'd be no point doing it otherwise, would there?
Yeah, no, exactly. I saw the video of it.
From Stuttgart.
You have it on your website, and in it you do also include a little bit of a nod to the worry of the unison, right? There's some comments of marching and where it can be used to in a negative way, and yet it's exactly that. It exactly has that quality of joy, being together, being with, and I think you mention it, right? There's a sense of, yes, we're trying to be together, but also we're failing at that, but still the joy of trying is somehow spectacular. We were talking about Swedish folk just before this, and in there's a sense of you're repeating almost the same step over and over again, but there's such a joy to try to get there, and it's so hard actually. It's not simple at all. I do experience it in I was doing traditional English dance since I was a kid, but I now play traditional English music. Well, actually, even more. Play a form of traditional English music from where we are now here in Sussex, and I think it was partly realising that experience of doing things together in traditional art forms is a central part of dancing somehow. I think that informed the piece. And it was interesting because there's movement in the performances in the Unison Piece as well, and we'd never videoed it, and then when we were rehearsing it before we performed it for the first time in Oslo, the only space we could find was in the dancers' house in the dressing room, and there was a mirror where people would do their makeup, and we have 2 electric guitars and they're lying on a flat surface next to each other, and for the first time in the mirror I could see Matteo doing the movement, and I was very touched by it because I'd said to him, well, if you do this, you really have to do it every day until when we do it together, you're not thinking and I'm not thinking. It just kind of dovetails somehow, and I saw how much work he put in,
And it was very touching. Suddenly, like, yeah, we're doing this together.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful moment.
Yeah.
Because I really had, because I'm standing next to him, I couldn't really see what he was doing, and I was all the time nervous about the movement we were doing. And then I looked in the mirror and went, that feels nice, you know.
There's a sort of relinquishing, sort of giving over to the dance in sort of
that's a nice way of putting it.
There's also something extremely ethical about these approaches of also what you started with, right? The dancing is choreography. There's something of being in the trouble of it, you know, the for want of a better word, the participatory nature of politics, maybe, that we are engaged continually in the difficulties of power and structure and hierarchy, and because I think when I in my MA I sort of was focusing on ethics. It was a little bit, I mean, it's an artistic MA, but still that was sort of a curiosity. And I was very fond of Simon Critchley, who does this sort of the infinitely demanding ethics, and there's then, you know, I would look towards choreographed situations, and there's this sort of trope that if it's choreographed, it's more authoritarian. If it's unison, it's more more domination involved. Yes. And then, of course, we were very well aware of, I forget who wrote it, but the tyranny of structurelessness, how domination can obviously be a part of improvised situations and sort of informal structures and things.
Yes, that's right.
And so ethics sort of, it invites itself in that way of almost holding the two types of freedom at the same time.
That's very interesting.
Dancing and choreographing simultaneously.
And I think if you choose to enter a shared activity like that, especially if you're making the same material, whether that be singing, playing music, dancing, then it's vital that you and anybody else in that space feels able to stop or walk away at any moment. And that way everybody has agency over their own relationship to the decision to enter into that collective space or space of collective doing.
It's those openings that you kind of provide conceptually often in your performances of sort of opening, like you might be seeing this might be the truth, but it also could be something else. So, and it's the same when you go to a dancing situation and there's openings of I could do it my way, or I could leave. I don't have to be trapped in that space, so to speak. I'd love to know, since when I came back to the UK after being away for so long, I started doing, now I'm not going to know all the names and stuff, but Morris dancing in Cambridge, and I went to a workshop in the middle of England, and there we were we arrived, and the teachers, I suppose, they were telling us how these traditions, it would normally be that you would dance one or two dances and that would be it, but today we're going to do 10 or something. Right. And of different traditions as well, 2 from this tradition, 3 from this tradition, and I couldn't help but wonder in that workshop, of course, what are we working with now? Are we working with the dancing, or are we trying to become a sort of virtuoso Morris dancer in a way of having a big library of
There's a wonderful new history of Morris dance in England, written by a man called Michael Heaney, And it's such a pleasure from start to end. And there are a few conclusions he arrives at. One is that it was always a fluid and changing form.
Yeah.
Women were always a part of it, and then were disappeared for a moment and then came back, and so forth. And that it's not a ritual. That this was a misunderstanding of the early collectors like Cecil Sharp. And I was talking to there's a dancer and caller called Fee Locke who lives in Hastings. I was talking to her not long ago, and she said something which really has lingered in my mind, and in relation to contemporary dance as much as folk dance. She was talking about Morris dance, but we were discussing the possibility that the English Morris could be protected by the United Nations protected status for intangible heritage and so forth. And it's been being discussed. But what Fee Locke said to me was, we disagree all the time about what is traditional and about what is Morris dancing. And the disagreements are the intangible cultural heritage, and UNESCO can never understand that.
Yes.
And I thought, how brilliant! It's not something that you have to agree upon. It's something that you have to go on negotiating, and that's and that thought of hers really redefined the traditional for me.
Yeah. I mean, it is. It's so complex and beautiful. I once was invited to score Maria Abramovich piece. We had it on a video. It was part of our education, and we were sort of to score. And I sat down, and I was like, okay, she's right foot first, left, right, standing, poised, head forward, looking, moves, check. Every detail, trying to. And every bodily tension and musculature, structure or whatever, dynamic maybe. And then at some point I just was like, but that's not what she's doing.
Right, yes. The analysis, it slowly erased what she was actually doing.
Like if I could sort of write her score, what was in her head, it was sit down or walk or remember, what she practiced, what she rehearsed. Very different in terms of the intentionality of what it is. I was lucky enough to go back to Rambert school where I studied to give them a Fresh Friday, sort of Freaky Friday moment where they can see what kind of careers are possible.
Oh, yeah.
Mine being a sort of unconventional one, I suppose. And the exercise that I have been obsessed with for 5 years now is I invite everyone to not dance. I say, don't dance, but if you feel as though you are dancing, do something else. So, they're coming in and they're telling me, I'm injured, my hip, my leg, my knee, my shoulder. And so I'm like, I think it'd be okay, especially with this first exercise. But the fascinating thing that came up was really that they were speaking, but it's the intention. It's the intent for why we're doing it. What are we doing? And I often feel that you spoke about how the motor system, it conflates Trisha Brown and Michael Jackson. That they live in the same place. But the approach is very different. The intention of Michael was very different to the intention of Trisha. And how we grasp those and hold those, I think, is somehow sort of built into these feelings we have around what we enjoy doing. Because my question, maybe, if there is one in this long stream of thought, is your work, because you're working with Matteo, it could be music. I mean, it is music. It's beautiful, but it situates, if I understand correctly, most often in dance context, or at least maybe that's my understanding of it. Yeah. But there must be something that comes from that. You were speaking about contemporary dance and your frustrations, And so I think my question is, how does the context, how does the intention play a role in the work?
Yeah, we often actually say that the work that we make is music, first and foremost. But then again, twice, including recently, over the last 30 years, we've tried to introduce a more strictly music piece into an evening of work.
Like science fiction.
Like science fiction, right. Not a long piece. And in both cases, when we've tried that, there's been a pushback that some of this is not the context for that, and that's been frustrating. But then again, I would probably argue that we're not musically virtuosic enough that we could present our work as our music work as music within a music context. So probably we've always been interested in working outside the frame of virtuosity. And allowing that to give us permission to arrive at conjunctions of materials that are unexpected. I mean, to some degree, we fall into a category of English performance or even English comedy, which deals with failure, but that's when we don't consciously pursue that. But I mean, you know, obviously, Les Dawson's piano playing is it's not an influence, but that idea that you can resist virtuosity has always been of interest. But it's not like we're deliberately not virtuosic. It's just that we're not. So dance has given us, in a way, somewhere which can tolerate that, but at the same time, you know, Matteo is slowly becoming a better dancer, and I'm slowly becoming a better musician. So, and the pieces have their own virtuosity because of the speed and complexity of the embodied thought processes in them. I mean, they do take you can't just get up and do them. They do take a while. And we do take pleasure in that, but it's not a conventional virtuosity of playing an instrument or the good dancer, the notionally good dancer. But if you would want to perform in one of our pieces, you would have to be prepared to work 3 months or 6 months, and you'd have to, you know, do it a little bit every day. Because it's just how long it takes. And for some people, that's intolerable. And I perfectly understand that. That's not what they want to spend their time doing. But I have a really deep pleasure in slowly accumulating an embodied knowledge of and memory of something until I can do it and then do 2 other things at the same time. I love that. You know? And there's plenty of other art forms that draw upon those kinds of embodied skills, and in ways that we never question. I think it dance at a certain point, because of this fear of the choreographic as being limiting or being authoritative. Then perhaps has lost something of those pleasures of slow practice to arrive somewhere you wouldn't have arrived. But, you know, you should do what you want to do. I like doing it. If you don't, do something different.
Because, I mean, that it was sort of my question, because, of course, you come from quite a virtuosic dance training, right?
But I was a bad ballet dancer, but I got away with it.
You couldn't have been that bad. It was 13 years or 12 years.
Well, I know, but the thing was that the Royal Ballet, when I was a student, was being run by Norman Morris, who was the man who had taken Rambert Dance Company through into being a contemporary company. And he had seen what I was trying to choreograph as a student, and so he invented this role for me of being an apprentice choreographer. And then when I arrived into the Royal Ballet, in a way, they did, the people whose job it was to rehearse the pieces and stuff, they didn't quite know what to do with me because I wasn't at the technical level of some of my peers. But then I was very fortunate because the choreographer Kenneth Macmillan started to give me small things to do, and then that increased into bigger things, and then when somebody gives you confidence, you get better at what you're doing, and so I became good at doing what I was doing, and I actually enjoyed it. So
because was one of those was because that's the thing I'm sort of curious about, is that it's lovely that dance has this porousness or this sort of ambiguity that allows us to sort of take something like you've taken this practice of rehearse until it is motor it's motor sort of in your motor system, it's in your body. Was that's so beautiful with dance. I mean, but was that something you were enjoying then?
Well, actually, to be honest, something that people don't often realize about ballet companies is that they're very, very busy. I mean, you work really hard. The repertoire is quite big often, and there are many performances, and so you perhaps don't always rehearse things as much as you could do, and because I was technically not as proficient, I tended to go away in a corner and practice till I could keep up with the others. And so that became a habit. But also in a ballet company, if somebody gets injured half an hour before a performance, a member of the staff will come up and say, so-and-so's injured, can you do their part? And you'll go, well, I normally do the other side, but yeah, okay, I'll try and figure it out. And so you would go on in front of 2,000 people with not having a clue what you were really doing and have to be absolutely alert. And so even though ballet is seen as kind of the opposite of improvisation, I never improvised as much as I have in my life. In ballet, I improvise. I'm trying to say I improvise more than I perhaps have other places. So it was those things that combined to send me in the direction I went in, and then also the influence of Rosemary Butcher, who by then I was already dancing with. And the Royal Ballet, to their amazing credit, once even gave me time off to go on tour with Rosemary Butcher, which, because I think they understood that I needed to do it. So. And her work, although her work was primarily improvised, there was a level of, how would you say it, cognitive detail that she demanded through a very long process of constantly fine-tuning the approach to the improvisation. Which I don't really use, and I've never used in what I do, but it's always been something I could draw upon somehow.
It's beautiful. Is it silly for me to ask, so what are you busy with now? Because I haven't actually asked it, I assumed earlier.
Well, I'm continuing with this research into the felt sense of choreography, and I'm waiting now to hear whether I have academic funding for it, but it will continue anyway. And I'm tentatively beginning a slow process of research with the dance theorist Scott de la Hunter on the ways in which we language dance in practice. This has crossover with what Chris Parkinson is doing. And I have been writing emails to my longtime collaborator Matteo Fargion suggesting an idea for a new performance. But so far he's not given very much response, so I just keep casting the line into the water and adding details until it either grasps his imagination or more likely he'll come back with a better idea. And I'm not entirely convinced I'm not convinced enough with what I've been suggesting to him to suggest it to you, but each time I reject it, it keeps boomeranging back. and in a way that I then get briefly excited and send him another 2-page email. That's how it's always worked.
It is these sort of moments of excitement and joy, right? That's sort of play of it all. And it's, I mean, and your research, like this thing of the felt sense of choreography, like I see it through the lectures that I've listened to, and also in the performances. You bring up very much the living with a body that speaks in a way that has a choreography already sort of involved in it. And how do we
That's
dance
right.
with that? How do we live with that? How do we
That's right.
continue? It's a strangeness that exists in dance. And I often quote you, I think you're quoting someone else, so I should probably look it up. Yeah, I mean, you often are in the Choreographer's Handbook, but you speak about electric guitars, that and you say it actually in another performance. Now I'm rambling, but
I do, yeah.
The
I can't
thing
remember
of
what my own quote is now.
people.
Oh yeah, that I don't even. Some people argue with me in workshops about the idea. What I observed was that. I mean, you could tell my age by the metaphor of the electric guitar, but I mean, when people formed bands,
Yes.
it would tend to be because they'd heard a record, right?
Yes.
And then I'd like to play something like that. Whereas in dance, we often enter into dance before we've actually seen a performance, and that's probably how it should be. But it is, if we then want to make a performance, it's a funny way around. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
That's what I was trying to point out.
Yeah. No, because it's an oddity with dance. I also agree. I remember, I think maybe to mask the fact that I was a young boy doing ballet, I would tell people that I was at a disco and I pointed at the guitarist, but I was so small, my parents thought I was pointing at the people dancing in front of the guitarist, so they took me to ballet school. so I even have like a sense of, that was my trajectory as well, that then I learned to enjoy dance through dancing, and in fact I wanted to play the electric guitar. That was the sort of the feeling of it. But the role of the spectator and the role of the dancer, there is this very strange relationship. And also there's a even for me, I've always felt there's a quality of audience with dancers. You know, you try to provide a space that they could experience something. There's a possibility as a dancer to witness your own dance, or to be
That's
in
right.
it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's actually even neurologically or neuroscientifically speaking, there seems evidence that we are activated by watching somebody dance, even to the extent of. There was an experiment recently, and I can't remember who conducted the experiment, but it followed this question: to what extent we're already learning movement patterns that we see somebody else execute. So the copying that begins in the child developmental stage, and there seems to be evidence that is the truth, and the joy of that is that if you're making a performance that it appears that the audience is disliking, you can at least rest secure in the knowledge that even if they hate it, they're learning it.
Yes.
Which I think is brilliant. I will try to point that out in a performance at some point. But I think you asked me what else I'm doing, and I'm interested in the idea of practice and daily practice and the ways in which you can attend to the thing that you're doing, especially when we don't have money to gather together, to be in spaces, many of the kinds of spaces which were artist-led have been erased by finances and more glamorous infrastructures that become bureaucratically dominated rather than artistically led, and so forth. but I try to take a stance that everything that I do in the day that attends to what I think I am as an artist is equal practice. So even if I'm playing English folk music and then I write an email and then I think about a piece and then I rehearse something, or then I have a university supervision or whatever.
Yeah.
And I do include workshop teaching in that, and I more and more have a genuine pleasure in those kinds of gatherings together. And it seems to me that there's not much. There's a lot to say which is negative about what's happening within contemporary dance at the moment, but there is a sense in which the dominance of performance hierarchically has been slightly softened since the pandemic, and that I think we are realising that all the ways in which we gather together are necessary. We're doing it because we need to, you know.
Yeah.
And I love watching what people do in workshops, the way that they engage and what they come up with, and I think we many of us are involved in activities like that, and there's a certain heart of contemporary dance that lies there, and I suppose you could say people would argue, well, that's exclusive, and so that's just the people who are part of it, and but there are many of us, many of us, and young people still seem really drawn to it. I think I just wonder if contemporary dance, like traditional arts, offers somewhere to be together, doing things with other people outside of a realm of a commodification.
Yeah.
And it is from all over the world, all continents and all cultures. There seems to be an engagement. And it's not a perfect art form, and there are many reasons to criticise its past and present. But I think there's also many positive aspects, and I certainly feel like I still enjoy and benefit from them. I don't know about you.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I feel somehow. I keep saying this, and I recognise it becomes worn out almost. But it's such an honour to have had dance in my life. You know, I truly believe it. It has provided me a way of being in the world, which is so joyful, and it does come up against, exactly as you say, the commodification of life itself. We're either consuming or we're being consumed. There's this constant productization of our being, and that ironically, you know, exactly as you say, the dance industry has that tension. It's trying to hold this beautiful practice we have, which I wanted to describe as maybe it's unlike a sort of play or script where there's this authoritative text which we all sort of bow down to. We all sort of come together in a sort of muddle. We gather with the sort of diaspora of diverse experiences and influences into the studio, this empty studio that sort of births a relationship, and then then also continues into the stage, and this podcast itself is exactly that. Like we didn't have to meet. Like we're not being paid. I'm not being paid. There's no money involved, but I'm so curious and invested in these encounters that I want to do it. And ironically, that's what I wanted to say was this of course, this does make it a product as well. This could become another part of or extension of the commodification of dance.
Yes, that's true. I've heard other people say that to me. Yeah, I think my wife Claire said that to me recently, not to forget that it also becomes a product.
Yeah, I think that was when I was young, and because I was sort of trained in expanded choreography, for want of a better word, and my critique at the time was very sort of anarchic, sort of critiquing everything, but but it's just replacing. Yes, it's expanding what dance can be, what choreography can be, but then it's just making it a product somewhere else. It always has to be sellable. What of the dances that escape that? What of the...
Good question. Yeah.
But it's beautiful that you, as you say, there is a daily practice of playing your instrument, going to the football field. Maybe you didn't say that, but this kind of external activities which inform our practice, inform our thing.
Yeah, I think of them as parallel practices. They may not be there and they may not all be shared, but they all inform in some way and attempt to understand the confusing but delightful overlap of everything that happens and that you feel when you dance.
Yeah. And I think for me the struggle has been sort of how do I honour those things and give them respect. And one way has been to sort of try to produce little stages. This is very fresh. I was only thinking about it recently, like when do they fail? When I go out and record myself looking at stuff, it's a bizarre dance-like activity of naming the things I see while I walk through the park for myself, for no one else, and then you listen back to it and you think, what am I doing? How am I spending my time like this? And yet, if I can find a way of staging it, even if it's just staging it for myself, putting it, taking care of it, and putting it in a notebook or putting it on my website, that I have it as like a sort of archive of myself somehow. But it's a beautiful, fraught relationship in the midst of it all.
Yeah, I was thinking of something that my friend Funmi Adewole said to me recently. We were talking about style, I think, essentially. It was in relation to hip-hop, because I had been accidentally immersed in hip-hop dance through Jonzi D and working alongside him, and also the artist Robert Hilton, whose PhD I was supervising at the time. And Funmi Adewole used this description, it's about the body attitude of the form. And I think this is a really extraordinary, precise articulation of the relationship between feeling, the body attitude, but form, the choreography itself.
Okay, yeah.
And so even though crump or popping or breaking or improvised dances, nevertheless, the body attitude of those forms defines itself through the doing. And so there's, in that sense, also, in that instance, also a cultural specificity, but also a specificity in general. And so this idea of the felt sense of choreographing, or the choreography already within the dance, I think has something to do with this meeting of body attitude is such a good way to put it. Because that seems to include the emotions, the psychology, the physicality, the memory, the expectation, the desire, and so forth, but also the body attitude of the form. So moving towards something which can find its own definition, either collectively in relation to what other people are doing, or in relation to a field of enquiry, which is how experimental contemporary dance has developed.
The form, the body, the thinking. I don't have anything intelligent to say, I'm afraid, but it does make me I've been reading a lot of Catherine Malibu and her work on plasticity.
Yeah, there's some kind of connection there. Yeah.
There's sort of ability that form can include in itself its own destruction. I think this is what she sort of
arrival and destruction. So
it's beautiful. Like I said when I emailed you, is there an assignment or is there a thing? I'm not going to ask you to now produce one.
Somebody could. You were suggesting I might have something that I could suggest that people could do.
We could do.
Well, but I don't know. I think everybody knows what they need to do. They don't need it from me.
But I love that. It's so great, and I think because I think that's the thing I wanted to sort of provide is that exactly like you're already doing, or the access to do things is extremely close, and maybe these conversations can be a prompt in order to sort of go to those places or not, as you say. So maybe we leave it here and we leave them with a silence and wish them luck in their world and lives.
Yeah, thank you for your thoughtful questions, but also observations. I really appreciated listening to your ideas.
Yeah, it feels very sporadic, and I'm hoping on the listening back, I will feel more confident with my naivete. But
feel free to choreograph again in any order that you find more conducive and helpful.
But it's clear you're doing loads of workshops. You have a website. I will link everything, and I will also try to transcribe what we've spoken, and I will list the references. So I will ask you for spelling mistakes or anything like that.
Yeah.
But also, people can find everything you're doing on your website, which is I want to say it right, Burrows and Fargion. Fargion.
Fargion,
at .com.
And there's a link to the work on Vimeo. We've since the possibility of streaming, we've made it a policy to make the work we'd like to share available to anybody who wants to watch it, and they're in full. They're full pieces rather than
and they're very watchable.
Pieces.
I've been watching them all week, trying to recap and sort of, and they're extremely enjoyable.
Good. Well, thank you for saying that.
I mean,
you don't have to watch the whole thing. I'm just saying, if you watch 10 minutes, then it's enough for you. Go and have a cup of tea.
Of course, like everything. Thank you so much, and I hope people find your workshops and find your work.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, thanks for listening. If you can support the podcast, please go to paypal.me/dancepeter. I'm just looking for a little bit of funding to help support the cost of the hosting. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Thank you so much.